Ciao a tutti, it's Ario, and it's been a while since I've seen a deck top out of absolutely nowhere, but here it is. This is heavily inspired by Tegalik's list. It's Plant Artifact Traptrix. I've changed a couple of things, but I'll mention what those are. Yeah, it's Artifact Traptrix, but more Traptrix than Artifact, basically. So we're playing 2 copies of Lonefire and 1 copy of Spore. This is kind of like the generic plant engine, and Lonefire into Spore can do some stuff, can make XYZ plays, but the main thing with Lonefire is that it brings out this little card, Traptrix Nepenthes. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a mini Serra. It's got 800 attack like Serra. It's 2000 defense because 800 plus 2000 equals 2800 like all Traptrix monsters. And basically, whenever you activate a Trapple, you can either special summon from the deck or add from the deck to hand a Traptrix monsters. And that's pretty fucking good if that triggers. It's kind of hard to come back from that to lose in that situation whenever that resolves. Obviously its stats are kind of poor if you just normal summon it. You want to bring it out of Lonefire and you need to combo it off. But if you do get to trigger it, consider it GG. It's also kind of nice that it baits Breakthrough Skill because the Breakthrough Skill in Graveyard. Because, this way they have to choose between using it on Nepenthes or the artifacts, and that's pretty great. And then other plants, 3 Dionias. In this deck, Dionia is pretty much mandatory because you're gonna use them a lot between Lonefire plays, with Soul Charge probably, Nepenthes searching it or special summoning it. I definitely want more. Also, you have a lot more copies of your Traptrix monsters. You have 9. You have 6 instead of the regular 3, so it's live a lot more often. And then, of course, Trimmer Molio. It's even better here because, you can search it out. You can go Nepenthes, activate the Trapple, and then search Murmolio. Then next turn, you add another Trapple. That's pretty insane. And even then, you can just use it as MST. So, really amazing card. And then, the artifacts, 3 moral attack, 2 big attack, you know them, you love them, probably. If not, you probably play Vegas format or something. And Tegalix also played 2 copies of Max C. I cut him for a couple of more traps, which, one was kind of weird to not play in this kind of deck, and the other was more like the 40th slot, but I don't think Maxi is that incredible in this deck because you're setting a lot of stuff. The opponent has to play a lot around your back rows, even more so than usual because you have Nepenthes. So, Maxi doesn't look that strong in this deck, frankly. But, it's also a lot more about the fact that you just don't have room for it. But, you could make room for it if you want to. Anyways, 3 dualities. 3 Ignition, 2 Double Cyclone, 2 Soul Charge, Dark Hole. It's an Artifact Traptrix deck. That's... it's... this spell lineup is standard for a reason. It's just fucking good. What can I say? Traps. 3 copies of Sanctum. Self-explanatory, best card in the deck. 3 copies of Call of the Haunted. If you wanted to make room for Max or other cards, maybe you could cut the 3rd one, maybe. Still, I'd probably play 3 because, you still have a lot of great targets. Nepenthes is kind of interesting. Because, it summons it in attack position, so you don't want to use it on their turn. But you can use it on your turn to summon back their Nepenthes. So, if they use Sanctum and you have TTHN and Call of the Haunted set, you can go Call of the Haunted, the Nepenthes, and then when Moral Attack gets summoned or activates its effect, you can chain a Trapple and you search or special summon whatever Traptrix you need, and that's a pretty strong power play. in the right situation. Kinda also works with Abyss Sphere. Not really with Gear because the Georgianos are a bit small. Then for triples, we are running 3 copies of TTHN, 1 copy of Void, and 1 copy of Bottomless. Frankly, you could argue definitely for playing 2 and 2. But with Nepenthes, I feel like 5 is kind of mandatory at least. And plus the side deck triples, you should probably side even more than just the Deep Dark and the Acid. Maybe regular triple would be nice. But yeah, in general, like with this deck, they always have to play around TTHN, which is kind of why I would probably consider 2 Void. But I also only have 1 Void, so I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, they're good cards, and if you activate them with the Pentas up on the field, you probably just win the game. And then, the one-offs, Warning, Torrential, and Compulse, which was what I cut the Maxis for. Tegalik only played Torrential. It's kind of weird to not play Warning in this kind of deck. And, he told me that it was also because he was considering 3 Soul Charges, because this deck is kind of like Sylvan's, where you have Lone Fire plus Soul Charge and you kind of win, except the rest of the deck is also good, so like with Sylvan's. But Solmi is kind of just too good to not run. And Compulse, in regular art, Plant has been playing 1 Breakthrough skill and no Compulse. But with this deck, because they have to play around TTHN, I feel like it's a lot more important to have Compulse, and also because you have 3 TTHN, so you don't need as much effect protection just versus the normal summons. But like, if they go like Gigantex attacking to Nepenthes, you have Compulsory, and it's pretty good at making. It's great when they're playing around the TTHN. That's what I'm trying to say. Compulse is great when they're playing around TTHN. But yeah, that is the trap lineup. Moving on to the extra deck. The extra deck is extremely tight. We're playing 2 Pleiades. It's Pleiades. I didn't have room for M7 though. So we're just playing 2 copies of Pleiades, Tiras, Gaia Dragon, and Volcasaurus, who are kind of, the best rank 5s. You could argue for cutting Gaia. Tegalik didn't play Gaia. But, you could also argue for cutting Volcasaurus, but, I think they're pretty good. And then for rank 4s, we have, Exiton 101 Dweller. This is my addition. Tegalik didn't play it. Rhapsody. It's always a good card. Black Sheep of Corn, Giant Hand. Tegalik also played the Cowboy and Emerald, which, makes sense. They're pretty good cards, but I wanted to make room for Rhapsody and Gaia Dragon instead. So I feel like they come up more. But in this deck, having more rank 4 cards is obviously important, because you have a lot more rank 4 access than in regular Artifact Traptrix because of Nepenthes and also Lone Fire plays. But at the same time, you kind of need to cut room for Synchros if you play Spore, which, you could argue for cutting Spore because mainly for freeing your extra deck up, but, you do get pretty good payoff in having access to Leo, which is pretty incredible versus Gilgias. Kind of wrecks that matchup, which, is fucking great when that matchup wrecks you, usually. Stardust Dragon, technically played the Spark, not sure why. Stardust is a lot better versus regular art, so Stardust is pretty incredible versus the mirror match, so that's another great tool. It's kind of like the only real counter that Cat has that I have found. It's the only real counter. Obviously they do have outs to it, but it's still really, really strong in that matchup. Vulcan the Divine, mainly for soul shard plays. You have Spore and an Artifact and a Call of the Haunted. Bring them back. Bring the Call of the Haunted back. You can also instead bring Dionia back. And, it's great because you bounce both your card and the opponent's card, which is great because on Soul Charge turns, you're not gonna be attacking, so you're getting rid of an way to get rid of monsters, and with Vulcan, you do both. So, you can argue for cutting it since it's not the most likely card you're gonna go into because, you need kind of specific stuff like normal Summon Spore or Soul Charge. But, I feel like it is powerful enough to warrant running it. And then to round off the extra deck, we have Armades. It's a 5, it's a light, so you can make plays with it. You can make it easily with, Lone Fire plays. And I feel like it's pretty mandatory in this deck. I always like using it to make plays. That is it from me. Leave a like, join the Discord, leave a comment, subscribe, all that good shit, and good.